Wake up, Patriots. Hey, it's been a while, hasn't it? Haven't seen you guys in almost 2 weeks. I had to take a little trip down to Texas for some homeschool conventions and give a little speech to the Texas Public Policy Foundation. All good, all fun, wonderful. But man, what did I miss, huh? What have we missed? So I'm going to kind of give you a recap of what we'll go over today. Might not get to all of it. Sometimes there's more than I expect, but let's just take a look here. First, obviously, they tried to assassinate President Trump, and they barely scratched him. They tried to persuade Team Trump to take Marco Rubio or Tim Scott as vice president, and that didn't work. He said, "Niet," and took J.D. Vance. Trump showed up at the RNC with his ear patch, which is now becoming a fashion symbol. Somebody showed one of the ear patches as having a Mike Lindell My Pillow patch. That was pretty good. Of course, he will give a rousing speech tonight. This should be one for the ages. And we'll talk about this, but I think that we've all seen a much different Donald Trump, not just since the assassination, but really during this campaign season. And he's more reserved, less bombastic, less likely to say things that get him in trouble. He's much more, in touch with kind of ordinary feelings and so forth. And this is especially true as people have seen him at this convention. So we'll talk about that. And then to finally top it off, Joe Biden announced he had COVID and is going to sequester himself out of reach of the press, out of reach of all those Democrats trying to get him to drop out. Isn't that convenient? And he's going to do that for about a week. Well, we'll see what's going to happen in about a week. I mean, I think we can kind of guess. I've been talking about this for some time. All right, so let's start with the assassination attempt. This has been, of course, done to death. I don't want to bore you with more details, but just generally, I think we can say that at best, this was a case of incredibly gross negligence on the part of the Secret Service. Now, we've heard all of the excuses. We've heard that they were low on staff because Dr. Jilly had to do an event and they had to help her, that they farmed out some of the stuff to local police who couldn't handle it, that there was a sloped roof, which explains why they couldn't put snipers on the building where the sniper crawled up and got up there. Even though all sorts of photos have surfaced of Secret Service snipers themselves on another building with a sloped roof several hundred yards away. So that's, and of course, half a dozen people reported this guy, including his own parents. They didn't say he was a shooter, but they reported him earlier. Several observers saw him with a gun. One cop confronted him, and as soon as the guy pulled his rifle, the cop ran. This is a Uvalde situation. Again, at best, this is Uvalde times 1,000. So what about at worst? I am not a conspiracy kind of guy. If you go to Patriots History of the United States, you will see that Mike Allen and I still believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. I'm not saying he didn't have inspiration, logistical help from certain three-letter agencies. Not saying that at all. Not saying the Cubans weren't involved. I am saying that he fired the 3 shots, and I think so far the forensic evidence backs this up. And the forensic evidence is this. There was a gun recovered that fired 3 shots. There were 3 bullets or bullet fragments found, located, that matched that gun. No other bullet fragments have ever been found, despite thousands and thousands of people going over the area with metal detectors and fine-tooth comb. They never found any other bullet. And most damning, I think, a open police microphone on a motorcycle revealed there were 3 shots fired. So you got a gun, 3 bullets, 3 shots fired. If there were any other shooters, there would have been bullet fragments recovered somewhere. So I've got to go with the forensic evidence until I see different forensic evidence. And by the way, just in case you didn't know, the famous magic bullet wasn't magic at all. Many people trying to spin this story have positioned, let me see how to do this so I don't lose you, have positioned John Connally at an angle down and to the right, which allowed Oliver Stone to use that famous back and to the left, right? That wasn't the case. If you look at the limo as it was constructed in that time, Connally was in something called a jump seat. I'm sorry, they tried to position Connally directly in front of Kennedy. That's how it worked. And of course, the angle of the bullet came this way and would have had to zigzag. Well, that wasn't the case. Connally was down and to the right, meaning when the bullet went through Kennedy's neck, it went straight into Connally. This is all depicted in a video made by Gerald Posner, who did a book on the Kennedy assassination, Posner, and his recreation with the proper limo situation showed the bullet went straight through. Now, again, I am totally open to other theories. If you can find me more forensic evidence, you find me another bullet fragment, you find me a record of another shot, I'm totally open to that. I'm just saying, as of right now, that's where I stand on that. So I am not a conspiracy guy, but you have to say that either this was Uvalde level gross negligence on the part of the Secret Service, or they were a part of trying to take out President Trump. You can't explain it with any third alternative. So I'm not going there yet. I want to see more evidence, but I am open to that notion that there were insiders on this. And as we all know, God, not Donald Trump, God turned Donald Trump's head at the last second, so he was only grazed by a bullet. So now it's the leftists who are in this conspiracy mode that, oh, it was all a hoax, it was all a stage. Isn't it nice to have so much evidence now coming in on our side that it's the leftists who are always accused of being the nut jobs and the crazies? It got so bad, folks, they had to prevent Morning Joe Scarborough, or as I like to call him, Psycho Joe and Yoko. He reminds me of, John Lennon and Yoko in their bed. Psycho Joe and Yoko. They had to prevent Joe Scarborough from going on air because they were afraid of what nutty stuff he would say. So that's where we are right now. Just looking at some notes I made here on all this stuff. Oh, yeah. The shooter, he didn't just bring a gun. He brought a ladder. He might as well have brought Chick-fil-A and sat up there and ate while he was waiting for Trump to get to the right point in his speech. As I said, we know he was stopped by a cop. And all of this for a presidential speech security. These breaches are just insane. We also know that the Secret Service had this guy in their sights for almost 3 minutes and did nothing. A guy with a rifle on a rooftop aiming at a former president, and you don't shoot? Forget about it. Give me a break. This is just kind of ridiculous stuff. And on top of all of that, there were enough warnings that the Secret Service let President Trump take the stage in the first place, which was insane. So there are all these calls for the DEI female head of the Secret Service, who used to run Pepsi, to step down, right? People are going, she can't hold this office. But of course, in liberal land, no one ever is held accountable for anything. I was glad to see that Uvalde police chief was finally charged. I can't remember the exact charge. They were serious, something like criminal negligence, something like that. Good. He needed to be. But this also should carry those kinds of charges. So she's come under intense pressure. And there were scenes yesterday of her, I think, at the RNC. Don't quote me on that. I think they were at the RNC with senators and congressmen yelling at her. And she wouldn't stop and talk or answer any questions, which is very typical when these people go in front of Congress. I can't comment on an ongoing investigation. Everything in the world to them is an ongoing investigation, and they can't speak about it and they can't talk about it. So, and by the way, Biden and Obama both took their good, sweet time in issuing any statement whatsoever about this. And the hoax news media, the immediate response was to the images that Trump fell and had to be helped off the stage, and they had to change that. But even then, they were trying not to say it was an assassination attempt. And the major hoax news media outlets, the Communist News Network, CNN, nothing but communists, NBC, the Communist Broadcasting System, CBS, and the all Bill Clinton system, ABC, all of them issued directives not to use the word assassination attempt in their coverage. So here's the irony of all this, and this is what you guys pay me for, I know. The historical view, the broad view. Here's the irony in all of this. The shooter may have killed the campaign to stage a coup against Biden. So if you recall, in the days leading up to July 13th, there was a mounting drumbeat of media stories, media calls for Biden to step down. And it was building up to a real pressure point. Well, the Trump assassination took that off the front pages for almost a week. It basically bought Biden a week's worth of precious time, because all he needs to do is to get to that virtual convention that's supposed to be held either next week or before the 27th. They said they'd have it on the 27th, but they've got to vote before then. They have to know. Trust me, the die have to be cast before the 27th. So this bought Biden a good week. And now the drumbeat is starting back up again. The New York Times today had a story. And excuse my sniffles. I'm sorry. It's Arizona. It's allergy season. So it's always allergy season in Arizona, which is fine. It's a mere 108 out here now. Folks, that's nothing. I know people hear these temperatures and they go, 108, 110. That's balmy. It's after it gets over 120 that we have problems here. I'll never forget coming out one summer to visit my mother, and our rubber shoes were like melting on the asphalt. You couldn't wear flip-flops because the heat would go right through the flip-flops and bake your feet. Airplanes were grounded at Sky Harbor because they were sticking to the tarmac like flies on flypaper. But that's at 120. 108 is nothing out here. Anyway, I haven't lost my place here. So the drumbeat was building to get Biden out. And that all stopped. It had to stop for about a week. And so Biden just needs to get to July 27th or before. As I say, they are going to have the die cast and know who the nominee is before they vote. This is the way you do things in real life. You never have a board of directors vote that you don't know how it's going to turn out. A lawyer never asks a question. Good lawyer never asks a question. He doesn't know what the answer is going to be. So believe me, folks, when they have this vote, the powers that be will know the answer already. They will know the verdict of the voters, the delegates. And since 90% of them are committed to Biden, even if he loses some defectors, he's going to win that vote. So all he has to do is get to that vote before the 27th, and we're on the 18th. So we're just 9 days away. I'm guessing we're probably really just 7 days away from the ballots being counted. And so guess what? Biden suddenly came down with COVID, and he has to be sequestered and taken out of the limelight for how long? A week. All right. I know many people are spinning this as, oh, this is the health excuse he's going to use to drop out. I don't think so. Of course, I've been saying this all along. I'm not going to vary now. I'm not going to give up my position now, but I believe he's the nominee. And I think this is his way and Dr. Gilley's way of getting him out of all these horrific meetings with the Democrats where they said, you're going to lose, buddy. You're going to take us down with you. And getting him out of speeches where he makes one gaffe after another. You know, he called President Trump his Vice President Trump. He had said that he's going to beat Trump in 2020 again. He said that he knows what it's like to have black people in power because of his Secretary of Defense, Kamala Harris. He can't get any of this stuff right because his brain's pudding. I mean, his brain is about the same density as the stuff in his pants, folks. I mean, this is really bad. So Dr. Gilley and Mike Donilon, who apparently is one of the top guys running Biden. Now, you want to know who's running Biden, who's running the country? J.D. Vance asked this last night. It was a good question in his vice presidential speech. Who's running the country? It's not Obama. It's Mike Donilon and this other guy, I think his name is Andrew something or other, and Dr. Gilley and Hunter. That's the four-person cabal that's running Biden right now. Previously, it was this woman, Fremont Jayapal, Ron Klain, who used to be his chief of staff, and Anita Dunn. Those were the three previous people running Biden. Now you've got this this four-headed hydra of Dr. Jill, Hunter, Mike Donilon, and this other guy. I wish I could remember his name. I'm getting Bidenitis here. So the irony, let's get back to that. The historical irony is that the shooter may have killed the coup attempt by taking this off the front pages, by relieving the pressure for Biden to step down. Now, he's still not safe. Nancy Pelosi, or as I affectionately call her, Botoxic, Nancy Pelosi staged a phone call to Biden. And apparently they started yelling at each other when she said, excuse me, the data show that you're going to lose. Now, wait a minute. I want you to catch that. Nancy Pelosi, read my lips. Nancy Pelosi said Trump is going to beat Biden. Do you fully understand the ramifications of that? It means they know they can't cheat. They cannot win it by theft this time. And let's go back why, real quickly. They can't win it by theft because they put all their eggs in the lawfare basket over a year ago, and none of those are panning out. Now the Docs case is totally gone. The other Jack Smith case may be totally gone. The Atlanta case now has been delayed past the election just in terms of the hearing on Fat Fannie Willis. They won't even have the hearing on her ability, her rightful authority to hear this case until after the election. What does that mean? That means that once Trump becomes president, he can just have the DOJ dismiss these charges. He can pardon himself. The only last sticking point is Alvin Boaston Bragg up in New York, and he delayed the sentencing, or the judge there, Marchand, delayed the sentencing until after the RNC, because he knew Trump would be the candidate. This is just my take. I could be wrong. Zen Master has not weighed in specifically on this take, but I think that after he's the candidate, the sentencing is going to be very light, maybe community service that would translate into Trump giving speeches. I don't think he's going to sentence him to jail. That would be insane. That would hurt the Democrats so bad they would never, ever recover. So anyway, let's wrap up with this Pelosi Biden speech. This got so nasty that Botoxic Nancy Pelosi told Biden to get off the phone, and Mike Donilon got on the phone with her, and she was trying to read him the data. All right, when we come back from this little word from our sponsor, I'm going to explain to you why the Democrats are in such a panic, and why even those calling for Biden to step down haven't really thought this through. Now, as long as we got Biden inflation. As long as you got Biden inflation, you got higher prices. You've got the declining value of your wealth. You got government printing too much money. Dollar's not worth anything. I went to Walmart yesterday, and my food bill, compared to where it was under Trump, was almost 40% higher. So it may be time to get some of your financial assets in something more stable, like gold or silver. So that's why Wake Up Patriots partners with our sponsor, Colonial Metals Group. Now, they're going to help you get safe and secure wealth with their secure self-directed IRA, where you have access to your assets no matter what happens in the stock market or the government or the Fed, no matter what they're doing. So let the team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you protect your assets, your family's future. They put together a special offer for our audience. So you can go to Ed Henry's site and click on the link, or you can call 800-805-4034. That's 800-805-4034. And you'll receive a free safe and open up to $10,000 in free silver. Now, silver is always preferable to gold because it's comes in smaller denominations, and you can spend it easier in times of crisis. And you got to break a gold dollar. It might be kind of hard, but you can get both, right? Gold for the long term, silver for your daily expenses. So consider that. Colonial Metals Group at 800-805-4034. All right. The Democrats are in an absolute panic. First of all, they see the polls. I'm going to get into the polls a little bit later. I always do. I give you the latest polling here toward the end. But they see Biden crashing so hard that it now starts to take them down in the House and Senate, and even some of the governor's races, all the down ticket races. They're getting really concerned about this stuff, which is why they're begging him to drop out. Now, how far have they really thought through this? I don't think they have. Remember, Biden has two different titles, two different functions. First of all, as hard as it is to say, he is the president, and Kamala Harris is the vice president. So when you say Biden should step down from what? He is also the candidate, right? And Kamala Harris is also the candidate. At least that's what everybody thinks. And as of 8 or 9 days from now, that's going to be official. So what does he step down from? Why? How can he step down from being the candidate because he is not healthy enough to serve or mentally aware enough to serve. But it's okay to be president. Do you see the problems that brings? It won't stop there. Next will be people begging him to resign from the presidency so they can elevate Harris, so they still have a shot at all those presidential assets. You know, being president has a lot of perks. You've got the free planes, don't cost on your campaign money. You've got all the Secret Service protection, more than Trump has. You've got all of the expenses of campaigning are fully set up and handled through the office of the president and the office of the vice president. So if you put Kamala in there, Biden resigns as president, you put Kamala in as President Harris, she's going to have all those assets at her disposal. She can use the media to make key speeches at key times. They wouldn't allow Trump to do this. Remember, when he wanted to give a speech on something, they would say it was a political speech and they wouldn't cover it. But of course, anything Biden or Harris wants to say, well, that's news. And so they will go cover that. In short, if you have Biden step down as president, then you give Harris many more presidential assets and advantages to work with. Then you've got the whole issue of the vice presidency. Does she fill that right away or not? Theoretically, let's say it happened on the 1st of August. You have August, September, October, November, December, part of January. So you have about 5.5 months for a new vice president, allowing time for the House and Senate to act. And remember my comments that the House may not act on this. They may not fill the vice presidential slot. Why should they? Mike Johnson would be next in line. But more than that, they're not going to put anybody in a hypothetical vice presidential spot who could help a President Harris get reelected. They're not going to do that. They'd put in some, Forrest Gump figure, but they're not going to put in any real threat as vice president. So that could drag on for a long time. And there are some thinking she might just leave the office vacant. I don't know how that works on the actual nomination, though. So that gets back to our second tier. You've got Joe Biden, the nominee or presumptive nominee, and Harris, the presumptive Veep nominee. How does that work? See, does he drop out of one but not the other? If he drops out of both, yeah, there's advantages to Harris being president and having all those assets. But you know what? There are major disadvantages because she would have to be caught up on all of the stuff that the president knows, or at least has been told. He doesn't know anything, but all the stuff that he has been told and all of the functions that he must go to as president. In other words, I'm going to tell you, it's a major, major, major time suckage that she's not prepared for because she has not been used in any kind of rigor in her vice presidential capacity because they don't trust her because she's a airhead, total bubble wrap. So all of these things kind of play into the mix. And that's why I think the Democrats have not thought through a lot of these issues very well. We'll just swap Joe out. It's just not that easy, either as a candidate or as president. So let's think about candidate Harris. The advantage over everybody else, she can use the $300 million they have in their little stash, their campaign stash. Nobody else can use that. And every single day that ticks by, folks, the clock is ticking. Every day that goes by is another day that no new candidate other than Harris has to raise money for a presidential campaign. They're going to need between now and November about $1 billion more. They got about 300 and some million, maybe 400 million. They're going to need at least another 600 million. But if you're a new candidate, say a Gavin Newsom, you would need to raise $1 billion August, September, October, 3 months. $1 billion in 3 months. You really think that's going to happen? It's not. And I think some of the Democrats are finally beginning to realize that the burden on a brand new candidate coming in would be impossible. But you know what else is against them? The polls. And again, I'll get into specific polls later, but the polls are showing that Harris does worse than Biden or the same, that Newsom does worse than Biden or the same against President Trump. There's one out yesterday that showed Michelle Obama would tie Trump. No way. That's unicorn thinking. I mean, because nobody has actually seen her campaign or seen any positions. So let me mention this. What would any new candidate run on? There's only two things such a person could run on. One, Biden's record. Do you really want to run on Biden's record? Did you see how J.D. Vance tore that to shreds last night? And some of the other speakers did too. Well, what's your alternative? You could run and say, everything Joe Biden did was horrible, terrible. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it in a more liberal way. That's incredibly risky because, first of all, what's left of the Democrat coalition, especially a lot of those tech people that are abandoning Biden for Trump, going far, far, far to the left is not going to sit with them because they do have wealth and assets to protect. So I'm just telling you that any switcheroo, excuse me, any switcheroo is fraught with immense, immense danger for whoever tries to take over for Biden. And I think they lose worse than Biden does. Well, you know, we were talking about these policies and they're breeding instability. And so the way to handle instability in today's world is to have some safe financial assets, and that's gold and silver. You know, I'll never forget, they always tout the fact that Richard Nixon took the country off gold, and that was true. But what else did he do? He allowed private purchase of gold, and I'll remember proudly going in buying my first 10 gold Canadian dollars, which appreciated in value so much. I sold them years later for a lot of money, a big profit. So that's why Wake Up Patriots partners with Colonial Metals Group. It's going to give you some of these safe assets. They'll help you secure a self-directed IRA where you have access to all of your funds, all of your metals, and no matter what the government is doing. So let the team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you out, help you get some gold, help you get some silver. And they put together a special offer for you guys. So you'll receive a free safe. You need someplace to put it, right? And up to $10,000 in free silver. Call 1-800-805-4034. That's 1-800-805-4034. Now, polling. Here's the panic. There have been now about 6 swing state polls in the last 3 weeks, before after the assassination. And they're all showing the same thing. Trump is up in almost every single swing state in every single poll. Once in a while, you get a poll and say, Biden's up by 1 or 2 in Wisconsin, or Biden's up by 1 or 2 in Michigan. Never Pennsylvania. And this is shocking to me, really. I mean, I did not see this coming. But Pennsylvania now is looking fairly safe. Trump is up anywhere from 3 to 5 points. He was up 7 points in one poll. No, don't buy that. None of these particular 3 states are going to be big margins like 7 points. I would guess 3 points would be the outside Trump will win them by, but he is going to win all of them. According to all of these polls, he's up every single place. He's up in Nevada, big, outside the margin of fraud. He's up in Arizona, big. And boy, I've got some real numbers for you guys in a minute. These are going to knock your socks off. But he's up everywhere. So what are the new swing states? The new swing states are not Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada. Trump is up in all of those, usually outside the margin of fraud. The swing states, the new swing states, are Maine, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, and Virginia. Those are the 5 new swing states. Last couple of polls in Virginia, we've had 4 of them. 2 were ties. Trump was up 2 in one, and Biden was up 2 in another. So you can see that's all within the margin of error, meaning plus 3 points either way. Things keep going the way they're going. Democrats are demoralized. They don't show up on election day. Trump wins these 5 states. New Mexico, I think, and New Jersey will be the 2 hardest for Trump to get. New Mexico is difficult. And I've been to New Mexico many, many times. I know people who do good analysis on New Mexico. The problem there is that it's a very poor state, and they depend a lot on federal welfare. But also, those who are rich are part of the government class. All the scientists at Los Alamos and Sandia, all of those upper suburban, upper middle class people are in the lower upper class, that kind of stuff. So in other words, you got the 2 extremes there in New Mexico, and not a whole lot of people in the middle who are really feeling the pinch of all of these economic policies. That said, Rich Barris in his last analysis said that New Mexico is probably about a Biden +2 right now, but it is trending toward Trump. And it's a toss-up, according to him. So these new battleground states, Maine, Virginia, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, would put Trump in the neighborhood of 320 to 340 electoral votes. And it can get worse. New York is not quite there yet. It's not within the margin of error. The last 2 or 3 polls have put Trump within 5 or 6 in New York. And we even had one poll come out that showed Trump up 1 or 2 in New Jersey. Do I think Jersey and New York will go to Trump? Not as of today. But remember, the trend is our friend. The trend keeps going in the direction of President Trump. And so this is what I wanted to get to before I get to J.D. Vance's selection. Nothing right now on the political, economic, cultural, foreign relations stage is working in Biden's favor. In other words, he can't point to an improving economy. He can't point to ending the Ute War. He can't point to stopping illegal immigration, which he's made some noises about. It's not real, but he's made these noises about, we're going to stop that. None of this stuff can stop this momentum against whoever is the Democrat candidate. That's why I don't care who they put in there. I kind of would like to see Trump beat Biden because Biden stole it the last time. I want to see some justice. But I don't care who you put in there. You could put Tom Brady in there and Trump would still beat him. All right, so that's why. Let's get to J.D. Vance. Excuse me. That's why the selection of J.D. Vance by President Trump was so important, folks. We just saw President Trump come within this much of losing his life. And now he's the nominee. And whoever is the vice president on that ticket would have ascended to the presidential lane, the nomination. Folks, this is why the RNC went way out of tradition to nominate President Trump very early on the first day of the convention and nominate J.D. Vance. This was an act of fire insurance. This was Trump saying to the elites, you take me out, you're going to get me only worse in J.D. Vance. And no one other than Elizabeth Warren, or as I affectionately call her, Comanche, for Che Guevara, No other than Warren said that J.D. Vance is Trump, only worse. And they know that. In other words, the very first thing they did at the convention on, what was it, Tuesday? Convention start was to install J.D. Vance as the Veep nominee, even before he gave his acceptance speech. Okay. And why is this so important? Vance is the only populist among all the people that Trump was discussing. Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, people like this, Tim Scott. Scott is closely allied with Wall Street and the bankers. My nickname for him is Bankster, because he is very much in the pocket of the bankers of Wall Street. Somebody like Marco Rubio, very much in the pocket of the DOD, the defense industry, Raytheon, Northrop, all those guys. So you would have had a choice of either a financial globalist or a neocon globalist if either of those guys took the vice presidency. Burgum, he's made enough crazy comments that he would have been unacceptable. So Trump went with the only populist out there, who was Vance. And if you heard Vance's speech last night, he is a genuine populist. You know, I taught at the University of Dayton for 31 years. Dayton's only about 15-minute drive from Middletown, where J.D. Vance grew up. 1 year while I was at the University of Dayton, the PR department came to me and they said, we have a big donor who wants somebody to write his biography. Now, I did this a lot, usually for companies like banks. I wrote a lot of bank biographies or company histories. I did a law firm one time. Well, the person in question was Bill Verity, William Verity, who was the former president of AK Steel in Middletown, one of the biggest steel makers in America. And Verity later became Reagan's Secretary of Commerce when Malcolm Baldrige died in a horse accident where a horse fell on him and killed him. I'll tell you a little story here, and we'll get back to Vance and Middletown. But when I was doing this biography of Bill and his wife, Peggy Verity, they were rock-ribbed, old-line conservatives, and they loved Reagan. As I said, Bill served in Reagan's administration. And they had to go to a 100th anniversary celebration of the Commerce Department, which Verity headed under Reagan. And this was in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was president. Now, I always use this as an example. There's people out there, you know some of them. They just have that incredible charisma. It's like, even if you don't want to like them, you're just, it's like the force. You're like drawn to them. Oddly, O.J. Simpson had that, according to one of the guys who hated him, who wrote a book about it, but said that when he met him for deposition, he was just ready to jump all over him. And he stood and goes, O.J., man, that was a great run you made against so-and-so. Well, Clinton is the same way. Everybody whom I know who ever met Clinton said he has that charisma and you're just drawn to him. Well, anyway, Bill and Peggy were to go to this commerce function, and at the head of the receiving line were Bill and Hillary Clinton. And Peggy, who really despised Clinton, she had built up in herself this whole, she was going to unload on him. I just think you're the sleaziest person we ever read, right? I mean, she was ready to go. She said, she told me this. She said, I got to the front of the line and I stuck my hand out to shake his hand. I was going to give it to him. And he took my hand in both his hands and said, hi, I'm Bill Clinton. Hey, you're a real cutie there. What you know? Hey, how you doing? And she said, hello, Mr. President. Oh, it's so wonderful to meet you. And she walked away and she said, Bill looked at her and goes, what was that? She said, I don't know. It just came over me. So anyway, Bill Verity, head of AK Steel there in Middletown. I had to drive down to Middletown once a week at least, sometimes 2 or 3 times, to meet with him. And AK Steel built much of Middletown. They built this giant park for the steel workers. They're beautiful park, fishing, golfing, everything else. But today, or at least, I'm sorry, 8 years ago when I left Dayton, it was a mess. It was what J.D. Vance described in Hillbilly Elegy, which is a lot of vacant houses, people who lost their jobs because the steel industry had to downsize so much because we aren't making cars and we aren't making steel here in America anymore. All of this was destroying middle America. And there's no better place to get a snapshot of this than Middletown, Ohio. And so I urge you to read Hillbilly Elegy when he starts talking about the drug abuse. I'm not sure at the time it was fentanyl. It was crack and other drugs, but it's morphed into fentanyl now. But there are horrific drug problems in a place like Middleton, and the absence of work is the main problem there. Well, J.D. Vance and President Trump are going to bring back those areas. You bring back the work, the drug addiction begins to dissipate. And it won't be overnight, but it will start to go away. So Vance was the populist fire insurance, and that's exactly what he is. He is fire insurance against taking out President Trump. He is so onerous, so unacceptable to the left. They go, you can't kill Trump. Don't do that. We're going to get Vance. That's why, folks, they nominated Vance so quickly and got President Trump nominated so quickly and not the rhinos. And how can you tell he is the perfect choice? How can you tell? Look at the response by Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, all the rhinos, all the neocons. Vance doesn't want us in the Ukraine war. They're freaking out. Folks, their freak out is good news. It means that we got the right man. Now, one more time, let me remind you about Colonial Metals Group. If you want safety and security in your finances, you better diversify. Everybody knows diversification is the key to healthy finances, and some of your diversification needs to be gold and silver, hard metals. Hard metals spend when inflated dollars won't. Just think of how wealthy you would have been in the Weimar Republic if you had had $50,000 in gold or silver coin. You could have bought anything you wanted. So that's why Wake Up Patriots is partnered with Colonial Metals Group, and they have a self-directed IRA where you can withdraw your money at any time, your coins at any time. Team up with them. They're going to give you a safe and up to $10,000 in free silver if you start your account, set it up. So call 800-805-4034. That's 800-805-4034. Go check them out right away. All right. Let's get back real quickly to Biden. Biden now is in a sequester, holding pattern while he has COVID. Does he? I mean, this guy's had 1 million vaxes, which probably means they gave him COVID. Earlier, he said he would step down if there was a medical emergency or if a doctor told him to. I forget his exact words. Many people took this to mean this is him beginning to ease himself out. I didn't. I don't think that's what he meant. Another way to look at it is that Jilly thought he was getting too much pressure and was trying to relieve the pressure by getting him out of the public eye for a week till they could cement him in. Again, keep an eye on this July 27th election nomination they're going to have. Remember also, Donna Brazile over a week ago said the ballots were out and they were coming in already, meaning they're being counted already. So I'm just guessing, but I'm betting they know that he's already won enough to be the nominee. Now, polls. First of all, we went over the swing state polls. They're all these states are Trump +2, Trump +3, Trump +5 in Arizona and Georgia. I came across some information that I think is just shocking. This is going to knock your socks off. I have a friend who does a lot of statistical work on voter registration, who's absolutely convinced that they stole the 2020 election based on not mules and not machines. Seth Keshel, Keshel. Follow him on Substack. One of the things he did was he showed that there were unusual, and by unusual, I mean crazy, nutty registration changes for Democrats in 2020 at certain places. We're talking about thousands in a place where you wouldn't have that many people, let alone Democrats. So, what did Seth find? Maricopa County, Arizona, which is home to Phoenix, I'm guessing it's about 60 or 65% of the entire Arizona vote. You win Maricopa, you've won the state. I mean, every single other county would have to go 100% to the other guy. That's not going to happen. So in Maricopa County, they strangely report their voter registration numbers. They update them every single day. And he did something very interesting. Seth looked at the voter registration numbers since the assassination attempt. And you know what they showed? They showed Republicans had a net gain. That is, after whatever the Democrats gained, which I think was 300, the Republicans had a net gain of over 1,200 registrations in 3 days. This was an Arizona record. And it brings Maricopa County up to a level of Republican lead of +6% at election time, if things don't change. But remember, they're shooting up exponentially for the Republicans. And Keshel thinks that by election day, Maricopa County will be Republican +7%. What was it in 2020? +3. So this not only is astounding way of saying Trump's going to win Arizona, it also strongly suggests he's got enough juice to pull Kari Lake over. Now, we've seen some polls, and these are internal polls, so I don't trust them, but we've seen some polls showing Kari Lake up over Ruben El Pollo Gallego. I don't buy it. I think she's probably down 1 or 2, which is fine. Because if she goes into election day down 2, even 3, I think President Trump's going to pull her over. He's going to have that big a coattail effect this time around. Same thing in Montana. I think Sheehy now is ahead. I haven't seen a non-internal poll, but I think he's ahead in Montana, maybe by a fraction. Trump's going to give him a bigger win there. There was a poll out showing, and this is by a Wisconsin polling company, showing, and I can't remember his name, the Republican tied with Tammy Duckworth in Wisconsin. What's the point? These Republican senator candidates have been running behind President Trump steadily by anywhere from 5 to 7 points. And now they're all starting to gain some ground. A very interesting development is going to be if and when President Trump and J.D. Vance win on November 5th. And I think this year there's going to be so much vote in the bag, they're going to have to call it on election night. I don't think we're going to be waiting again, particularly if Virginia comes in. It's done. So if President Trump and Vance win, somebody's going to have to replace J.D. Vance as the U.S. Senator from Ohio. And Vivek Ramaswamy is already making a play to do that. I'd be thrilled with Vivek as Vance's replacement. But the other Senate race is getting a little tighter, and that's Bernie Moreno versus Sherrod Brown. And there is another alternative to Vivek, I'd like to see Vivek first, but if it's not Vivek, I think the only other call Mike DeWine, the governor, has, who I trust this much, I think the only other call he has is if Bernie Moreno does not defeat Sherrod Brown, he needs to appoint him to that Senate seat. So it's either Vivek or Moreno has to go into that Senate seat from Ohio, so we don't lose a populist voice there. So this is why the Democrats are panicking so badly, is that Biden now is starting to drag down all of these Senate candidates. And the trends are all going in the wrong direction. Now, last thing, you might have seen one or two polls showing Biden had a recovery after the debate. It's nonsense. These two polls showing Biden up by 2 nationally were incredibly small samples, and they're bad pollsters. They're outliers. You take those 2 out, and all of the other polls say 1. We're looking at about 12 polls, and there was 1 outlier had Biden up by like half. They all have Trump up 2 to 6 points nationally. Now, I don't need to tell you a 6-point national lead in the popular vote for President Trump would result in an electoral college win of 340 to 360 electoral votes. That's why they are freaking out. All right. Well, let me remind you of my own company, thewildworldofhistory.com, where we have full U.S. and world history curriculum for high schoolers. The U.S. is perfectly coordinated to my #1 New York Times bestseller, Up Patriots, History of the United States, 22 units, 22 chapters, and me teaching every chapter in full high production video with a screen behind me. Why does my hand keep disappearing? Screen behind me, in which you get maps, charts, graphs, you get all of it. And the same thing with world history. We have 15 units. They're bigger units because I'm covering more territory and more subject. And there's 15 videos. All of this is digital and downloaded. You download it as you use it with your student. And here's the best part, folks. There's no license to expire on any of these curricula. So if you have 2 or 3 kids coming up, you can use it with all of them. You just hang on to your materials and use them all again. Now, we have a freebie for you. If you go to thewildworldofhistory.com and sign up for our newsletter, and the newsletter is free, we will send you a free PDF of what I call the 20th anniversary edition of Patriots History of the United States. What's that? It's a brand new chapter from the years 2018 to 2023 that I wrote. You'll love it, and you'll get that free. If for some reason you sign up and you don't get it within a day or 2, email me at Larry@wildworldofhistory.com. That's Larry@wildworldofhistory.com. I'll send you the free PDF. And along with that, you're going to get about 20 pages of new research, new material that goes in Patriots history, where I found interesting new research that kind of changes the way we see some things. All good. It's all wonderful stuff. Now, also remember, my book, Patriots History Globalism, just came out. You're going to want to take a look at this. It's called The Rise and Decline. It's not the fall. They're not gone yet. We haven't knocked them off yet. They're still there, but they're declining in power. And all you need to know about this is the last Davos meeting. What was their theme? Restoring trust. You know, if you've got to say you're restoring trust, that you've already lost trust, right? Who came to the last Davos meeting? Nobody. The most major person who came was Javier Milei of Argentina, and he read them the Riot Act. He said, you guys are a bunch of socialists. You need to quit it. So they're on the run. We've got them on the run, especially now that you've got Trump and J.D. Vance there. God's not going to let Trump go anywhere. God's got his hand on President Trump. You can bet that. I don't think they're going to try another assassination attempt. They're going to try to get rid of Biden, but I don't think they can do that either. So all in all, some pretty positive developments. Our hearts go out to Corey Comparatore, who lost his life defending his family as this insane shooter tried to kill President Trump, and to the people who are still battling the wounds they got from this nut job. Okay, so pray for them. All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for me. I hope to see you back here next week. Remember, colonial metals, get yourself some gold. I'll see you back here in a week.